Perfect traders, welcome out to your FOMC preview. So, for the calendar, there's a lot going on this week. We've got retail sales out this morning. You can see that we beat on retail sales month over month. The core, slight miss, but nothing too major there. Then we move into the central bank meetings. We've got the Fed meeting on Wednesday. Expectations are for a 25 basis point rate cut. And then, of course, we've got the press conference that follows. So the statement comes out at 2 p.m. Eastern Time. The Fed press conference starts at 2:30, a half an hour after. Later on that evening, we've got the Bank of Japan. Then we move into the Bank of England. Both of those are expected to keep rates unchanged. And we'll finish off the week with some retail sales out of Canada, core PCE, and inflation number there to finish off the week. So, does the Fed cut rates? It seems likely. Expectations are based on what the Fed has said that they feel like policy is restrictive, that essentially rates are too high, that it slows down the economy, that it slows down consumer borrowing and corporations, and rates are a little too high for corporate America to build out and hire and so on and so forth. So they're saying we've beat inflation. Now it's time to make sure the economy is good and stable and strong. Whether that's right or wrong, the future will tell, but that's the mode they're in. And one thing we always say when it comes to rates is that really these things go in trends. It's never one cut and you're done. It's always a process. So as soon as you enter into a rate cutting process, there's more rate cuts and then more rate cuts that follow. Now, sometimes they'll pause for a little time and then more rate cuts, but where are we going over the next year or so? Well, probably lower in terms of rate cuts, right? Can we get down here into the 4, 3.5, some lower numbers? I personally do not anticipate, it wouldn't shock me if we never see rates this low ever again in our lifetime, or at least not anytime soon. I think this ship has sailed. This idea of zero interest rates and that there are no ramifications. We saw inflation go to 10%. That's stated inflation. We know that in the real world it's even worse than that. I don't think we'll get back to that mode, perhaps ever. Certainly not in the next decade. But can rates back up further? They're not going to go towards zero essentially, but can we go down into the threes, maybe into the twos? I think the economy would have to weaken quite substantially. You'd have to have a pretty big recession and such to get down there over time, but it's the path, it's the trend. We know we're in a rate cutting cycle. Interestingly enough, as we look at charts, let's maybe look at the daily chart. If you look at the US dollar, we've been upward trending. And we've really been upward trending for the better part of since we started cutting rates. And this is the old buy the rumor, sell the news. The dollar was weakening in ahead of and pricing in those rate cuts. And then when the rate cuts finally materialized, we actually got a relief recovery. And so you look at the US dollar long term and we're in this big, strong upward trend. If we look at it on a shorter term scale, here's a 4-hour, you'd say more bullish than bearish, certainly. We're upward trending, upward sloping in the moving averages, buy signals and upward sloping. So the US dollar has some real strength to it. And more to the point of, would you rather short a chart like this or buy? I'd rather buy. I think more times than not, this is going to accelerate further. And if you were going to bet on it not going any further, it would be at a point where maybe things had gotten out of hand. Maybe you see a big sign of exhaustion, something like this up at a peak before we kind of stall and consolidate and so forth. But we're not seeing big signs of exhaustion here. It's a little bit of a quiet, calm before the storm perhaps, but I would not be shocked to see another big surge to the upside here in US dollar charts. It's setting up for that. It's poised for that. Now, if we're looking at US dollar long, we've got to think about what to be short on. Japanese yen has been a little weaker, although it's certainly reversed here of late. Some of these, as we go through, you'll see the reversal, see the Swiss franc, and this is sort of a risk-off day, right? Japanese yen, Swiss franc surging. You've got all the commodity currencies falling, so it's not a great risk on day. I mentioned the euro as being one of the stronger currencies in the currency recap yesterday. It's still holding up really well, and British pound has been solid. I mean, that is a buy on all fronts. The British pound, frankly, probably looks like the best buying opportunity right here, right now. But if we were looking at trading US dollar on the long side, you got to circle back to some of these commodity currencies. Canadian dollar, that's, if it wasn't for this support here close at hand, I'd call it a -3. It's probably still a -2 type of rating. And Aussie breaking down again. There's some support underneath that's not ideal, but otherwise has all that bearish momentum. And all of these, you'd rather be short than long. Look at Kiwi breaking down, sell signals, the downward slope starting to roll over. So I think you go long US dollar and you could look to short CAD, short Aussie, short Kiwi. That's the trade in the here and now. It could change before tomorrow and before we get into the Fed meeting, but that would be my instinct, would be a long US dollar and then short these other currencies and not try to overthink it too much. Go where the momentum is, go where the trend is, and try to take advantage of those opportunities. In the crypto space, as we do a quick update here, well, equities, I should point out, are weakening. They started to roll over. That's part of that risk-off environment. And then crypto has really just stalled here recently, but starting to maybe elevate once again. We talked about Bitcoin yesterday, and it's just starting to potentially break out of this high base. So in the crypto space, I think you can buy Bitcoin. In currency land, it's more long US dollar, short CAD, short Aussie, or short Kiwi against it. So there are some opportunities as we move into that Fed meeting tomorrow, certainly for trading and for some volatility, for some velocity, some of the things that we look for, which is we want to see energy in the markets. Have a great rest of your night and a great Fed day tomorrow, and we'll see you next time. Goodbye, everyone.